Matt Whitaker, former U.S. Acting Attorney General.
This is such a great conversation about America, our future, what's going to save our republic.
We have a great football player. Matt Whitaker is here. Matt.
They tried to bury me. They didn't realize I was a seed.
It's a touchdown. Whitaker.
Former acting U.S. Attorney General.
Under President Trump.
I'm going to be an unwavering supporter of law enforcement.
Welcome to Liberty and Justice with your host, Matt Whitaker.
Welcome to CPAC Now. I'm your host, Matt Whitaker. We're live here at CPAC. It's so good to be here with so many great patriots. We've had some amazing speakers today. Mike Pompeo is on the stage currently. I'm joined right now by the founder of CPAC Australia, Andrew Cooper. Andrew, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, Matt.
Yeah, so we have become friends over the last several years. In fact, Andrew was kind enough to invite me to speak at the most recent CPAC Australia at the end of last year, and it's good to have you here.
Thank you.
You make a lot more trips to the United States than I do to Australia, but have you found a way to make it easier?
It's not an easy trip. You've just got to suck it up, as we say. You know.
I remember in law school I visited Hong Kong just for fun with my dad, and I remember flying, and it was lunch, dinner, 2 movies, and I still had 8 hours.
Yep.
That's nothing compared to the flight to Australia. I mean, I gained a day and lost a day each way. So
look, it's a long flight, but it's well worth it. You know, I love coming here. I love coming and seeing you guys and seeing the great work you're doing. And you know, my job's to take inspiration from this and take it back down.
And you're such an important part of the family, because we were talking earlier today about you know, the CPAC conference in Australia that you hosted and put on. I think really set the tone for some of these wayward political types that aren't connected to the grassroots. And you know, one of the interesting things that I learned while I was there is you have mandatory voting, where everyone has to vote. If you don't vote, you're fined. Yeah. And so that oftentimes these politicians appeal to the less educated voter instead of a more sophisticated voter who's interested in voting. Yeah. And talk to me a little bit about, I know the Conservatives lost the last national election. They're in the minority, and so therefore the Prime Minister is I guess a liberal, you know, in our paradigm of right-left. But tell me how the conservative movement's rebuilding and expecting to do, you know, as we head into the next cycle.
Yeah, Australia's in a cycle. The Conservatives let the country down through the COVID period. You would have seen some of the lockdowns and the mandates. We had a Conservative Prime Minister through that period, and he's been punished by his base. You know, you would have seen that there was some booing of Conservatives on stage at CPAC in Australia, and that's because we feel let down at a time when there was some panic and some concerns about health. Obviously, they had an opportunity to you know, stay true to the values, the core values of conservatism, and they decided to run with an authoritarian agenda and pretty well join with the left, and it was very disappointing. And so most of the Conservatives have been voted out, and the left are in control. But now it's an opportunity to rejuvenate. Yeah. And part of the role of CPAC Australia is much like here. We want to put our future stars on stage, have them talk to the base.
And I met several of those people, and I was really interested and pleased to have those discussions and compare and contrast. But one of the things you do, and the reason you know, you've come to a lot of the CPAC events. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I saw you in Japan as well.
No, it was in Seoul.
Seoul, that's right. Yeah, that's where we first met. I mean, it's I've done a lot of trans-Pacific flights for CPAC, but I think you take notes. You see how it's done here at, you know, what you described as the mothership, the big CPAC. We're back in Maryland at the National Harbor Gaylord, and it feels like the CPACs I originally started coming to a decade ago. But that being said, like, what are some of the things you're noticing that CPAC in the United States is doing that you're going to take with you back to Australia and implement at this coming CPAC, which is in August?
What I do love about CPAC here is that you mobilise the youth, you know, younger people. In politics back home, it's hard to do that. You know, we're struggling to do that. So our mission is to make sure that we get more and more young people coming to the CPACs, and that goes to what's on stage and the kind of entertainment and vibe that the conference produces. I love the vibe here. It feels very energising. It's something that we try to replicate, and we've got to get into the universities and encourage them to come to CPAC and get engaged and get involved in politics. At the moment, the left have got a stronghold at the universities, and
as they do here.
Yeah, I know they do, and I think you do a better job though of getting those that don't fall into line with the left. You get them motivated, and we need to do a better job too. So that's probably one thing. I just sort of love the way you set your stage up. I love the way there's a sort of a lot of engagement around. Like if we look outside here, we can see people. Everyone's involved in conversations, and it's wonderful, right? Everyone's feeding off each other, and probably getting motivated to do something, to act.
Yeah.
And so we got to take that down under, because what the COVID period told us is we need to act. What happened to us through that COVID period was like something that was unbelievable. It was something many of us would never have even imagined, that we'd lock our own people down in their homes. And it's probably a warning for most Western countries, is that if you can make people frightened, they'll give up their freedoms pretty quickly. And the authoritarians just walk on in.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
As I was down there, I was, like I said, I was in CPAC Australia, so I was in CPAC Japan this year, and we first met at CPAC in South Korea. And the thing that you realize, the closer you get to China, the more everyone's looking for the United States to lead that interaction with the Chinese Communist Party. Tell me, as you're, when you're closer to it in Australia, what is first of all, what is Australia doing, and how are their policies? I know you've pushed back, especially on the exploitation of your natural resources by China, but also, to some extent, we've lost New Zealand, and I worry the English-speaking, the old Five Eyes that I got to know when I was at the Department of Justice, has lost New Zealand to China and China's influence.
Yeah, New Zealand, a couple of decades ago, New Zealand decided no nuclear powered ships would come into their waters, and they sort of stepped away from the alliance that Australia has always had with the US and the UK. And those alliances have been strengthened. We have the AUKUS agreement, which is the UK and the US, and we have Quad now, which brings in Japan as well. So I think Australia is, as you pointed out, quite concerned about the influence of China, and they're sort of picking off small Pacific nations, offering them big infrastructure projects on low interest loans, on the proviso that the aircraft runway that they build can be used by them if needed. And we know what that means eventually, right?
Yeah.
And I think the other concern is I just look at China, and I really think they sort of have a 100-year plan, and in our short political cycles, we're sort of, ebbing and flowing on how close we get to China. But I think they know what they want to achieve over the journey, and I don't think it's very good for the West. So we're concerned. We do push back on China, and they punish us every now and then with trade, sanctions and that sort of thing. But we think we need to do that.
Yeah, and that relationship, that coalition that the United States is a part of with other nations, we're trying to bring India into this relationship as well, in a meaningful way. I think that we need to invest more time. I really, as I've traveled to many of our allies, Israel as well, we have lots of allies, but it's like having lots of kids. Your attention is divided, and not that it's a parent-child relationship, but to some extent, it's just that the relationships need nurturing. I guess I compare it more like having 50 wives, if you will. I mean, it'd just be a lot. It's a lot to maintain each of those unique relationships.
Yeah, well, we both know that it's difficult to maintain a relationship with one wife, right? Imagine having many more. I think. Look, the free world still looks to America, but I can assure you that Australia wants to pull its weight.
Absolutely,
and
they always have.
We always have, and I think what happens with an expansionist talking or appearing expansionist China is that our friends are gathering now. We have a common enemy, or a common threat, I guess, and also, you know, with the weakness in the White House at the moment, there's this fear that our enemies will take advantage. We've already seen Putin take advantage. So, you know, I'm very hopeful about the future and the alliance. I think it's very strong. We've always been great friends, Australia, and it doesn't matter who's in government. You know, the people are very friendly, and we always maintain good government relations, regardless of who's in power.
Yeah, and what you're building is a key part of maintaining and strengthening those relationships for time to come. So, thank you, Andrew Cooper from CPAC Australia, the founder of CPAC Australia. Look forward to coming down again in August. I encourage everyone, if you haven't visited one of these CPACs in another country, they're a great way to meet like-minded friends and our allies. So again, I'm Matt Whitaker. You're watching CPAC Now. Join us next time.